come once again to discuss things.
Let's go ahead and get started. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I don't know if this will be a special or a mini or what'll happen, but we'll make something work here. I'm Sid Part2. Joining me today is Steve Baxey. Hello, Steve Baxey.
Hey man, how are you guys doing?
Guys, I don't know, am I multiple people?
I was
or
talking
are you
to the audience there. I said hello to you and then hi to the audience. Let's go with that.
Okay, well there we go. This kind of came from, as I realize more and more of our topics are with Steve and I, this kind of came from a Twitter conversation that Steve and I had.
This does happen a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's how we just did the Pirates one, so yeah, it seems to be a running theme here. At least with me, I don't know if you pulled a topic because of something I said on Twitter.
Oh, I definitely have.
Oh. So yeah, what we're going to talk about today is our headcanon for the DC Universe, and then we'll probably do another video with our headcanon for the Marvel Universe. And so, I guess to try to explain that is, what we mean by it is, not necessarily what the continuity says one way or another, but just how we see the DC Universe working, like what happened when, and just who showed up when and how they interact with each other and what drives the universe and how it feels, even if that's not the way that it initially started or the comics currently have it.
Right.
So basically, if you were rebooting the DC universe, we're going to create like a history of until, the modern age. So I guess the best way to start is, with me at least, it all goes to World War II. And it doesn't have really anything to do with Superman and Batman showing up in that era. I wouldn't have them show up till, the modern day, whatever the modern day happens to be. But for me, it both the Marvel and the DC universe start in World War II, and the DC universe had, like, kind of super soldier experiments going on in it as well. But they were never as successful as they were in the Marvel universe, so you don't get, like, the kind of super soldier that Cap became, and so the enemies aren't pushed to push the technology further, which is why DC, I think, is always about 10 to 20 years behind Marvel in technology, no matter what universe you go to.
Oh, that's weird, because I got a very different explanation for the exact same problem.
Yeah?
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Okay, what about you?
So for me, Marvel starts at World War II because Captain America is one of my favorite characters over there, but DC doesn't start for me until about late 60s.
Okay.
It starts for me after around the time Batman 66 ended. And most of the reason for that is I like to think of the DC universe as the superhero arms race, as opposed to the space race or anything like that. Because that's the closest allegory to real world two ideologies going to war. And so you get Superman showing up, and you get Batman showing up, but then at the same time, you get people like the Joker and people like Lex Luthor, and there's bits of capitalism going on there, there's bits of communism going on there, and then that way DC didn't really think about pushing their technology or pushing the people until they had a reason to in the 60s and 70s. And Marvel's been doing it for like 20 years longer, which is why DC feels like it's a little bit behind. That's why the Atom is nowhere near as cool as Iron Man.
Yeah. See, for me, it's just like, not that I've seen the trailer, but I've read Dark Knight Returns. I know exactly what Ben Affleck's robot suit's going to look like. And that to me has always been like Tony Stark's Mark I,
Right.
So like that's... And it's not because Batman couldn't put the resources into it and couldn't make it as powerful or anything, or couldn't put all the resources into developing his own robot armor suits if he wanted to. It's just that the technology of his time limits him at where Tony Stark starts off with. And so that's always where it's been in my head, is just because there wasn't as successful a super soldier program, the warring countries didn't push their technology enough to get it as far ahead as it is in the Marvel Universe compared to DC.
Yeah, and there aren't exactly a lot of arms manufacturers in the DC Universe anyway to draw from.
Yeah.
A good number of the ones that we have at Marvel, even the heroes, started with weapons, so it makes more sense that they would innovate more. Even Tony Stark, when he stops making weapons, there's still a bunch of other people that fill the void and S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff that forces that to exist. And all DC's really got Cadmus.
Yeah, Cadmus, and there's occasionally, like, you know, Lex Luthor's doing something with Bruce Wayne going to... I always thought that there should be a really interesting story about Wayne and LexCorp always trying to outmaneuver one another for different projects around the country.
Especially after reading the JLA story Morrison did with the corporate takeover of the Justice League.
Oh, God, yeah, right?
Oh, I love that story.
Yeah, me too. And so I always felt like that should be something that's kind of always going on in the background. I was thinking to myself, you know what would be amazing in the Batman-Superman movie? Is if we had Bruce Wayne, like, hacking into LexCorp Enterprises and say, hold on, I just want to send some other stuff out. And Superman being like, what are you doing? Oh, just sending some leaks to a stupid reporter that no one cares about, and then, like, Clark Kent's phone buzzes. Just shit like that would be hilarious to me.
That
Batman
works in the New 52 surprisingly well.
What?
That would work in the New 52 surprisingly well, since he's essentially just a blogger of that.
Yeah, totally. No, just like, I always thought it'd be interesting to see Batman doing, using his skills as for corporate espionage as well. Yeah. Just because he doesn't like LexCorp, and he knows what they're up to.
Right.
Like, there's that scene in Superman Doomsday which doesn't work overall, but definitely has its moments, where Lex Luthor talks about how he cured MS with a single inoculation. Like, I'd like Bruce Wayne to know about that and be leaking stuff like that to the public.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So, but yeah, for me, like, the heroes and stuff don't start showing up in World War II. They don't show up until the modern age. And it actually does start with Batman for me. But not like, you know, the ultimate Batman thing. Kind of like, you know, urban legend kind of Batman that's always in the shadows and people don't even really believe he exists is where Batman starts out for me with the DC universe.
Right. Yeah, I think Batman is where mine starts as well, just for the sake of, I like Batman being the guy with the most experience in the DCU. Mm-hmm. Because that always helps explain away how he knows how to take down every member of the Justice League, not just because he's super smart, but because he's been around longer and he gets to see them make the same mistakes he already fixed.
Yeah, stuff like that's really important to me. And so, like, I think if we use the stories that are out, you know, Year One, and then Long Halloween, and then Dark Victory as the first 3 years of Batman. You know, fix Dark Victory so it's not Long Halloween. Well, you know, I haven't read Robin Year One, but let's just say Robin Year One. So that by the time another hero shows up, Batman and Robin are a thing. But yeah, people still don't think that they exist. Like, I don't want a bat signal yet. I want the first 3 years of Batman there not to be a bat signal.
Was there a bat signal at the end of Year One?
There might have been. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to go look.
Because I know that movie ends with a Gordon-Batman rooftop scene that gets mimicked in Batman Begins, and I know there's a bat signal in Batman Begins, but...
Yeah, it's like they all borrow from each other.
Exactly.
It's hard to keep it straight. No, I mean, regardless, I still don't want there to be a bat signal. I like kind of the Batman version of it where, you know, he gave, what was the...
Batwave?
Yeah, the Batwave to one of the cops, and that's how she got in contact with him. And then after a certain amount of time, Gordon puts on the signal. And I'll just eliminate the detective character and start with Gordon, and he starts using the signal once he actually becomes commissioner.
I like to think that the Batwave doesn't actually do anything. because it's a cool symbol and that's all it's good for, but I always loved the Batman concept of Bruce Wayne has got wires connecting all the way throughout the city, kind of like what Scott Snyder did in a fill-in issue before Death of the Family. And every time an alarm rings anywhere, he gets a signal on his Batwave.
That was in that they kind of alluded to that in Dark Knight. It's a little thing no one ever realizes.
Did he have that in Dark Knight?
Kinda. It's a really quick line. It's in the prologue when the guys are on the rooftop and the dude's trying to catch the alarm before it goes out to the cops.
Oh, right.
It's a really quick line, but he goes, "It's going to a private number."
But I always assumed that meant that it was just a mob bank.
Well, then what's good is that going to do for the mob, though? When you think
because it's a mob bank, so the mobs are going to handle it without the police there.
I don't know. I think that's really sketchy because I just think it makes more sense if it's going to Batman, not to the mob. I mean, you can debate about it, but I always thought that it made more sense the other way because that did occur to me as well. But like, what's the mob going to do? Show up to a bank robbery?
Well, if it's their bank.
Yeah, but they're going to show up to a bank robbery with guns?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what the guy did, though, when the Jokers were trying to get away and he started shooting them with a shotgun.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that it makes as much sense as Batman having all the banks wired and stuff.
That's fair.
But, I mean, you could go either way with it. I just think it makes more sense the other way.
I guess that would also just raise the question of why did Batman never show up then?
Because it was daytime.
Okay.
No, but yeah, I really do like the idea of Batman being around the longest too. And then what starts driving all the other heroes to show up and Batman to kind of become more of a public figure as opposed to an urban legend is Superman showing up on the scene.
Yeah. And Batman giving Superman not only a sense of accountability, but then Batman also getting a sense of, I need to keep getting better from Superman.
Yeah, because like I'd like him to kind of gotten into a bit of a comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like by the time you get to the third year where it's him and Robin. Like I could just imagine Batman pulling an all-nighter and him and Robin taking out a bunch of thugs, and like after they're all like knocked out on the ground, Batman kind of yawns, and then there's like a TV playing in the background, and it's the first footage of Superman that we've ever seen, or something. And that's what causes him to become, the god that Grant Morrison kind of makes him into.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also, and there's not a lot of stories like this, but you get to a point where Batman and Robin and Dick Grayson are a team, and they use more technology than martial arts. Mm-hmm. And when they get into that too much of a technology groove, and Superman shows up and Wonder Woman shows up, and they have to focus more on what their bodies are capable of as opposed to what they can just make. Yeah.
That is a really interesting aspect of it, is you've got Batman, he's got to be better, but it has to be him.
Exactly.
Batman Beyond kind of touched on that in one episode, if I remember correctly, where like he was using the Lazarus Pit, but he hated himself because it was a cheat.
Yeah, and there's also an episode where Terry's Batsuit is stolen, so he's going after it despite not having the physical strength, because the whole point is he has to overcome that.
Yeah. So that's and to the point I was making earlier, it's not until well into the future of the DC universe that you have technology that could compete with the Iron Man armor.
Yeah.
And that's probably just the Mach 2 or Mach 3 Iron Man armor at that point anyway.
Yeah, it's like comic Golden Age armor at that point.
Yeah. But with Batman, with Superman showing up on the scene, is you have, I guess, where we kind of get into some of the stuff we saw in Seven Soldiers of Victory is when that kind of stuff starts to happen, where people just are starting to try to give themselves superpowers. And you have just a bunch of accidents happening left and right, like somehow the universe itself is reacting to Superman, whether or not the people are willing to. That's when the Earth gets just busy, because I think it was in Final Crisis where one of the Alpha Core Lanterns said to Hal that he spends way too much time on Earth, and he says something to the effect of, "Earth's a busy planet. There's a world-ending threat every other day." And so, like, I think that's at the point where the Earth kind of just starts getting really busy for some reason that we never really understand.
Oh, I'm glad you brought up Green Lantern, though, because, I mean, I haven't read as much Green Lantern as you have, but of the stuff I've read, I'd always like to think that Green Lantern started doing things in space for about a year before anyone showed up on Earth. Like, he just had, like, space training for a little while, and he was hanging out with Sinestro and stuff, and then eventually when Superman and Wonder Woman are everybody's showing up, that's when Green Lantern starts protecting his sector more after he's trained.
That'd be interesting, and I'd really been thinking lately that I'd love to, if I ever get the chance, I'd love to write a Sinestro origin, because I don't think anyone's really done it properly. It's alluded to, you get little hints and details of it throughout the Johns run and in the Green Lantern Corps book here and there, but no one's ever gone back and done a proper Sinestro origin since Emerald Dawn Part 2, which was like a sequel to Emerald Dawn Part 1, if you could imagine that. And, like, I don't like Emerald Dawn Part 1 because Hal Jordan's spending 90 days in jail for drunk driving and paralyzing someone.
But most people hate Emerald Dawn, so...
Yeah, I mean, it's not good. It's interesting, but it's not good. And the Sinestro origin in that is his origin, but it's not taken with the proper weight, in my mind.
Right.
It doesn't have the right oomph to it, if you know what I mean. So I'd like to do a Sinestro origin, and I think that could blend in well with what you're talking about. Is, you know, say Green Lantern Boot Camp is like 3 months compared to the 3 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Green Lantern Boot Camp's like 3 months, and then he's going off to do some apprenticeship with Sinestro for a while.
Yeah.
And
make
that's
it very
really
much
good.
like an actual cop thing of they get followed or work with a senior officer for a few months before anything actually gets going.
Yeah, and I think that's where you do Sinestro's full origin, where like you get to a little bit of an idea of his past. Where I'd love to do, like, you know, everyone goes, Sinestro was a dictator. Okay, that's weird. Well, no, you could totally do something with that because we constantly have heroes saying, I can't go that far, I can't cross that line. Well, Sinestro's the character that crossed that line, and you got to show why that's a bad idea with him.
Sinestro has, in my mind, always been he wishes he could be Space Ra's al Ghul, where he has the resources and power to make global change the way Ra's wants to. It's just he's always usurped by Green Lantern.
Maybe I could kind of see that if you're talking kind of like the Begins version of Al Ghul.
Yeah.
Okay, I could kind of see that, but for me...
Not eco-terrorist comic book version, but more of these people are terrible, therefore they must die.
I can kind of see that, but the way I'd look at it more is, you remember the Justice Lords episodes of Justice League?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd look at it more like that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
He just completely takes over the planet, and, you know, they ask him if they can have elections. That kind of stuff.
Right.
Where he's just gone crazy way too far with it and has crossed the line. And, you know, the good thing about Emerald Dawn Part 2 is they discuss how the hell the Ring let it happen, because it's supposed to have this, like, this moral code brought into it where no one's allowed to abuse the power of it.
Right.
And the reason that Sinestro was able to get around it was because he full-heartedly believed everything he was doing was right.
That makes sense.
Was like just. So that was a good detail, and so I'd probably keep a little bit of that, but just give it more weight than the story did.
Yeah, I can agree with that. That sounds nice.
Yeah, and so I do like the idea of Hal operating for, like, you know, Batman's third year, but out in space doing his thing, and then Superman and all the other characters showing up is kind of what brings him back to Earth.
Right.
Because before that, it's reasonably quiet.
Yeah, no, it totally is. And I always like to think that the DC universe is populated by nothing but mobsters for a few years before supervillains show up anyway.
Yeah, and I think Joker, Dark Knight style, is kind of a good way to do that. Is the mob kind of rules Gotham for a while until Batman starts taking them out, and then they do kind of... it creates this power vacuum, and people like Joker step in and just make crime into performance art. as Morrison puts it, and he just, no, the city deserves a better class of criminal kind of thing. Where it's like, okay, well, we've seen what you get that theme of escalation where we've seen what the heroes are willing to do, the good people are willing to do, so we've got to be just as willing to do that as bad people.
Right.
And so I find, yeah, I do agree. That's a really interesting way to look at it.
And also that, have you ever read Grant Morrison's Action Comics or no?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and then also Superman deals with the same sorts of things, except his change from mobsters to supervillains happens quicker because there's no way mobsters can deal with that.
Yeah, and so you get like Lex Luthor showing up to work with the military, who's afraid of Superman, just on principle. Yeah, I can see that too. And so Superman like very quickly starts to deal with the super scientist kind of villains, whereas Batman's dealing with like the wacko kind of villains.
Yeah, like the Fleischer cartoons of Superman, where it's just mad scientist after mad scientist.
Yeah, totally. All right, so where do you think Wonder Woman fits into all this?
Wonder Woman is odd, because I always imagined her as the most refined original concept of both Batman and Superman put together, and that's why I like her so much. So I think the best place to put Wonder Woman is, she's been around since, say, World War II, if we go on my timeline, or at least like the end of the war with where I'm going. And she gets to travel the world a little bit. Like Themyscira's got I'm not sure if they do in the comics, but maybe they've got a thing of you reach a certain age and they let you go into the world to see why you live outside of it.
Okay,
and
that'd be interesting.
that's where they get all those different flag costumes for all the countries, because they've been out and they know what that looks like, and every now and then they have to change it because they realize the world keeps shifting and they can't stand that. Like they can't unify in one way. So Wonder Woman goes out in the world a while, and that's why she eventually wants to become a diplomat. So she's doing that while Batman and Superman are first showing up for the first couple of years. And
that's not a bad idea.
Between supervillains or from mobsters to supervillains, she joins the world.
That's interesting. I just don't know if I'd want her to be... Like, there is something very appealing to me of her just discovering the world for the first time as it starts to completely change.
That's fair.
So I do think I'd want to keep her... like, rather late on the scene, like maybe Superman's a year into his career before Wonder Woman shows up.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to see how they introduce her in Batman vs. Superman, considering that we just have this world-ending threat. And so maybe, like, you could do something like that with, say, Brainiac. If we're going to go with the Action Comics Grant Morrison run.
Yeah.
The world was almost ended, so Themyscira decides, like, as a council, the Amazons decide that they cannot just sit by anymore. Now that new enemies are reaching the planet, they have to take a part in defending it, too.
Right, but I would want to be a little bit more
interesting
complex than Brainiac or Secret Origin on the Justice League animated series, because if it's just an alien invasion and she shows up out of the blue, I don't like that as much. Like, I feel like you need some sort of exposure or motivation to the curiosity that's found of I should be going out in the world. How Joss Whedon talks about, it's not necessarily how he gets from childhood to Batman, it's about the birth of the drive that gets you there.
Yeah, I can see that too, because I like the idea of it being some kind of threat that happens to the external world that causes the Amazons to decide we need to be a part of the world again now.
Right.
But I'd like there to be a lot of debate about how, and I don't know how much I agree with what I'm about to say. It'd be interesting if the Amazons started discussing ruling the world, and Diana came and said, no, we need to join slowly, let me be our emissary.
I like that. It would also be nice if they almost did like a name war, Aquaman kind of thing of, even though the world doesn't know they exist, there's a point where their pollution and their wars fall into Themyscira. Like a bomber plane just drops every now and then, or the water by there gets infected by like nuclear testing or stuff like that.
Well, yeah, because they're supposed to be in a part of the world that's like not inhabited at all, so that'd be the kind of place that you would see nuclear testing.
Exactly. And flight tests and stuff like that. And so the world doesn't know they exist, so therefore they don't realize that the Amazons have moral standing, but that's exactly why they feel like they need to rule the world, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, and like if you're gonna do like flight testing and stuff, you could probably do a fun little thing with Hal Jordan early on in his career.
Yeah, I was thinking the
ring. Like he just sees Themyscira at one point. He's like, "What?"
And it'd be kind of cool if Hal Jordan and Steve Trevor were friends or something.
Like wingmen. That'd be neat.
That would be. Like Hal's plane gets not abducted, but gets taken away by Abin Sur's ring, and
like the resulting like bubble or something makes Steve's plane crash on Themyscira.
Yes, something like that, exactly.
That'd be really cool.
That needs to happen in the movies. That sounds awesome.
Yes, that does. I really like that idea. Man, that is such a good idea, Steve. Thank you.
I want that now. I can't. I really want that.
The only problem I have with that is how is Hal going to end up in a desert at that point? But that's okay.
Well, if being carried away by the ring, he can always end up in the desert.
That's fair, but then all the Guy Gardner fans are going to bitch. So
okay.
Because geography plays an important part in the ring selection, so where was Guy and where was Hal? So I don't care. It's still awesome.
That's fair. I don't really like Guy Gardner that much, so.
Yeah, neither do I. It drives me crazy that he always ends up taking over whatever book he happens to be in.
Yeah. I mean, I like it when he's on stuff like JLI, where he gets his comeuppance by other team members, but that's about it.
Yeah. I do want to talk some more about the other Green Lanterns because I have some stuff I wanted to say with them.
Sure. Yeah.
But before we do, let's go ahead and talk the other big names in the Justice League because those are the heroes. Everyone else is kind of fills themselves in my mind.
Right.
But like you gotta establish the big names. So first of all, Cyborg's not on the Justice League.
No, because that's dumb.
Yes. So. Flash and Martian Manhunter are the other two left, right?
Yeah. Flash, Martian Manhunter, and if we want to touch on Hawkman, maybe, but his continuity is so crazy, I don't even know where to begin with that.
Yeah, we'll get to him in a minute, but let's start with Flash, I guess. So how have you been liking the Flash series? I think I only saw the first 4 or 5 episodes.
It has its stumbles, especially when you throw in Iris and cross over with Arrow. But overall, I'm really enjoying it. I have no idea how you do a season 2 because you did all your good ideas in season 1. But I'm really liking where it is right now. And keep in mind, it's being recorded 2 weeks before the season finale. Okay. But up to this point, I really enjoy it. So I would kind of like not adapting it straight up, but doing like the Wells and Reverse Flash and Barry stuff from that show in the comics.
Okay.
I've never read the John stuff. I've read some of the Mark Waid stuff, but potentially doing something where a future villain or friends of Flash comes back in time to force Barry into being Flash in the first place, and that happens because he joined way too late in the game in the original timeline, and he got killed too soon or something like that. So they want to alter that and make it like the original Reverse Flash who was obsessed with Barry and was a really big fan of his. And so this is just him coming back in time and trying to making him an uber fanboy of the character of, oh, you killed my favorite guy. I'm gonna change everything so the world revolves around him now.
That'd be interesting. I do like what I gleaned from the Flash show, which is that Zoom needed to help create Barry because otherwise his own superpowers wouldn't have happened.
Right.
So I do like that kind of premise, and you can do the uber obsessed fanboy part of it too. Because I mean, as much as Infinite Crisis didn't work, I did like the idea of Superboy Prime. I thought that was an interesting idea of like a comic fanboy suddenly gets all the superpowers and has no idea how to handle them.
Yeah, it's good in concept.
Yeah, good in concept, poor in execution. Gets better in Sinestro Cold War.
I still need to read that, but
yeah. But so yeah, that it is a good way to introduce Flash, but in our timeline, saying of the first 5 years of the DC universe, where do you think he fits in?
Probably year 2, maybe year 3, a little bit later, or at least right around the start of supervillains are showing up because a lot of the Flashes are bad guys, are the pathetic villains, are the guys that can't get it going. So it'd be pretty fun if in the middle of that transition there were a whole bunch of mobsters that wish they could be supervillains. And that's where you get the Flash's rogues from?
Yeah, so that's where you get, like, Captain Cold and
Heatwave and Captain Cold's weird golden sister that comes out of nowhere.
Oh, and you know what would work about that also is you have kind of the Rogues Gallery has kind of a moral line, kind of like Old Mob did.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, they've got a code.
Like, yeah, you got that line in Daredevil that I really liked. Used to be if you killed a lady's husband, you sent his widow flowers.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. That kind of mentality creeping into the supervillain area would be pretty good for the majority of Flash's Rogues Gallery.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that when we get to Marvel as well, because Spider-Man's got that.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I could see that. So he kind of shows up a little bit late on the scene, but do you think he should have a little bit of the hero worship thing too, or wanting to be like them, or what?
I wouldn't say he has a hero worship necessarily. I think it'd be cool if you get Green Lantern coming back to Earth the same time Flash shows up. And so they've got a friendship because they're trying to get used to people with much different power sets than them changing the world. Like they can save the world from mobsters, but what do you do when a guy like Superman just shows up out of nowhere and makes world-sweeping change in a minute?
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of get a friendship out of that, and it becomes more of just a am I supposed to be on a team with these type of guys, or should I be on a team with these types of guys? Because I don't know if I agree with their methods.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I did find kind of interesting in one of the lower parts, not lower, just less interesting parts of John's run was the 1 year later part of Green Lantern where like superheroes had been banned from a number of countries, and there was like a jurisdiction issue because Green Lanterns aren't superheroes, they're cops. They have jurisdiction over the planet. So it created a bunch of weird issues for Hal to deal with there. And so something I think would be interesting is if Hal is told right before he goes back to Earth, introduce yourself to the most powerful political leader on your planet, explain the situation to him, and tell him that he has no choice but to accept your help. The Guardians have reached out to every world leader. Something like that would be interesting. Then so Hal tries to show up on like the White House front lawn, and they're just like, oh great, another one. He's like, what? Because he's like, he has no idea what's going on with all the other superheroes that've been popping up.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
It's like, wait, I was supposed to be like the guy, and I'm not. What the hell?
I like that. Yeah.
That would be something interesting to play around with. And so him kind of interacting with Flash, who's just getting started. Like if Flash like sought him out and goes, so hey, we're both new superheroes showed up. You want to team up sometime? It's like, I've been doing stuff for like a year.
And it's kind of the perfect match because Green Lantern's going to be going around doing space cop stuff. Barry's going to go around doing time travel stuff.
Yeah,
they've got the exact same weird perspective on things.
Yeah, it's a good story. I like that idea of them interacting and forming a friendship through kind of like general obscurity, because it'd be a nice adaptation of the perception of comic books at large.
Yeah.
Like it's not the case anymore as far as the comic book fans go themselves, but with the mainstream, Flash and Green Lantern are still kind of like, who are those guys?
Yeah.
Like I was talking to the anchor at the station last week, and she goes, so did you know this Avengers movie is like part of a whole thing of like series of movies? I'm like, yes. I was well aware. I cannot believe you weren't. And she goes, well, who's all in it? Is the Flash a Marvel character? No. What does he do? He runs really fast. No, he's in the Avengers movie. No, he's not.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So, like, there is that general obscurity, so it'd be fun to kind of adapt that into the comic books a little bit. And then Green Arrow could just be like, hey, and they'd be like, what? Is this like a weird team-up thing?
Green Arrow might be a little bit different for me, though, because Green Arrow I wish would be around at the same time Batman is, except he's in a city that's nowhere near as corrupt and terrible as Batman's, so his is just more of a, I'm rich and bored. That's what he is in the comics originally, is he's rich and bored, and he learns to fight crime after he's stranded on an island for a little while, and then he becomes extremely political.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Oliver Queen's one of those characters where I kind of want him to be I like it more when Oliver Queen doesn't have a secret identity.
Yeah.
And so I'd like him to be the political voice of the superhero community. That'd be really interesting.
The Mike Grell stuff, or no?
No, I haven't. I haven't read any Green Arrow if Green Lantern isn't in the book.
Okay. Well, that's fair. I just say that because in that he has a secret identity in the sense that he thinks he's hiding his face, but everyone knows that he's Oliver Queen, so he just stops wearing a mask at a point because there's no point to it. And he becomes sort of a spokesperson for vigilantism, not because taking the law into your hands is right, but in the sense that if you can get help, you should take it.
Gotcha.
And that gets kind of mirrored with Black Canary, who gets brutalized during the early part of that run, and she becomes a spokesperson for abused women.
Oh, interesting. See, I like the idea of Green Arrow being the political voice for superheroes because I don't like the idea of Batman being a public figure in the same way that Superman is.
I agree. At least until we get Batman Incorporated stuff.
Yeah, and even then, I don't like Batman giving the speeches. It has to be Bruce Wayne, and there still has to be this distinction where people don't realize it's the same person.
Right.
So like Bruce Wayne can give speeches and stuff, though I prefer for the public to just think of him as like a complete joke. Like I would like Bruce Wayne to run for the Republican primaries. And just make an ass of himself.
So Republican.
Yeah, that's the kind of public perception I would like for Bruce Wayne is the public just thinks of him you could see Bruce Wayne showing up on episodes of Saturday Night Live kind of thing where people are just making fun of him all the time.
That's hilarious. I always figured my Bruce Wayne as being smart business minded but really bumbling in day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's not necessarily a playboy as much as he's just kind of awkward around people.
Okay, I could see that. I'd kind of I guess my Bruce Wayne would kind of be a weird mix between Clinton and Trump.
I can see that.
As far as the way the public views them.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I think Clinton might actually be the ultimate way to go, because that seems like what Bruce Wayne would be like in real life. And then you never suspect it when he turns out to be a genius.
Sorry, Bill.
I like Bill Clinton, that's why I say that, but...
Anyway. No, so that's where I see Bruce Wayne fitting into the thing. Alright, so we got Martian Manhunter's the other one. I kind of want to do something a bit darker with Martian Manhunter.
Oh, interesting. Because I would like the first fanboy character being created, where he's a fan of the Justice League and superhero ideals when he starts out.
Yeah, for me, that's fine. I'd probably keep that, but for me, I would like, his classic origin is he's accidentally teleported. He's the last Martian accidentally teleported to Earth, right?
Right.
I would like them to keep that, but instead of it being some random scientist, I would like it to be the government realized there were signs of life on Mars and used technology they didn't understand to bring him there, to bring him to Earth. And then kind of do a little bit of the Flashpoint Superman thing with them, where the government's just been keeping him, you could do a lot of the Area 51 stuff with John Jones. And yet, even through all of that, he's somehow getting through, the psychic waves, all the things that the superheroes are doing, and he's able to take that and still feel inspired about people. Like for one reason or another, Mars was never able to leave the planet, and so he's been able to kind of watch from a distance all the, television programs grow up with Earth culture throughout the last 100 or so years. And grow to admire humans, and then feel really depressed, but then be able to get that back by seeing what superheroes are doing.
Right.
Which is a bit darker, but I really like that idea for him.
Yeah, I like that too. Mine would be more along the lines of on Hal Jordan's return trip to home. The last stop he has to make is on Mars, and his first big failure is letting the Martians go extinct, except for one guy. And then Green Lantern is kind of Martian Manhunter's Superman. At least he sees him that way. This guy came out of nowhere to help save us, but it just didn't work out.
It's an interesting idea. I don't like that being where Hal has to start with such a big failure.
Well, it would probably happen for me long after Sinestro's been outed as being evil.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that screws with his head or something like that, and that's partly why he's so taken aback by all the superheroes that are already on Earth. So he's kind of dealing with his relevance as he goes forward, and that cockiness he has is just kind of an overcompensation for that.
Okay. It's not a bad idea. I just don't know how much I like it. That'd probably be one of the things I'd be okay with them doing, but I'd probably feel like Manos about the portrayal of the Amazons toward that one. That's probably the reaction I'd have. Or I'm not going to say it couldn't be good. It's just I would not like it.
That's fair.
But yeah, I'd like, for me, I'd like him to be, the experimented alien in Area 51 for a long time, maybe since World War II or something. Like maybe the Nazis bring him or something, and then he's taken quickly by the U.S. and he thinks he's going to be saved, but then he goes through even worse stuff until Superman shows up or until someone shows up. Maybe it's Superman, maybe it's Green Lantern. One of the big heroes does show up and rescues him from that. Right. Superman would probably be a better fit because that could happen fairly early on before he's really become, the public figure kind of thing, where he's still that social justice Superman that we had in early Action Comics.
Right. No, that makes sense.
And then I don't know what I really want Martian Manhunter to do after that point.
It's kind of weird because I feel like Martian Manhunter was best played in New Frontier.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to top that without thinking of it.
Yeah, it really is, because that's probably one of the best versions of Martian Manhunter. Also,
that's like one of the best versions of the DC Universe, period, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. Wonder Woman's kind of on that edge thing, and that's another thing that you could do with her is really have her kind of have some old world values.
Yeah.
Like someone steals something, she's getting ready to cut off a finger.
Right.
Something like that. And people are, freaked the fuck out by that. So that kind of reaction is what gives her a little bit of hope for humanity. It's like, oh, so maybe I am kind of wrong. Maybe the Amazons aren't completely right. Maybe our way of life isn't the most civilized and everything.
Yeah.
That kind of mentality I could find really interesting with her.
Yeah, I agree. Wonder Woman and Martian Manhunter, since they have to come back into the world after already being kind of close to it, they're harder to write for.
Yeah.
But I think that's also why they're interesting, because they're just as much about exploring and finding the world. That's why I really like their dynamic in Justice League Unlimited. John doesn't really like humans after a while because he's been working with criminals for too long, even though he starts with loving humanity. And Wonder Woman has the exact opposite.
Yeah. I could see that. So I just don't know what I really want John to do after being freed in my version. So that might be what kind of makes your thing stand out a little bit, is he clearly has motivation to, love humanity and help them at that point. Whereas my version, he's kind of got a very, he does have the potential for a very negative outlook at that point.
Although if he doesn't have one, that was ultimately would make him the more interesting person. If he goes through all of that and he still loves people.
One of the things you see with John Jones a lot is they do have him, when he's a human, he adopts the appearance of a black police officer, right?
Yeah.
One thing that would be really interesting with the kind of backstory I guess I thought up for him would be, what if he uses, that position in the world to kind of go up against, corrupt officials kind of thing.
That'd be interesting. He's like the ultimate symbol for internal affairs.
Yeah, and especially, I think that'd be really poignant today in this day and age with all the police issues we've been seeing lately in the public sphere.
And assuming we're still doing the universe where you said where it all starts in World War II and then it'll come out until the modern age, it'd really kind of fit with that theme of it's been there for a while, it's always been under the surface, and now we're just exploring it.
Yeah, I really god damn, I think I just created a really good pitch for a Martian Manhunter book.
New 52 should have been listening to us.
Yep. Well, hey, I just got a comment from Zack Snyder, so you never know who's listening now.
Scott.
I'm gonna, that's gonna be my thing that I'm gonna talk about for a long time, I hope you know.
No, that's fine, because I've chatted with him on Twitter every now and then, so...
Yeah, that was a big surprise to me. In any case, yeah, so I think that's where I'd like Martian Manhunter to start out. So then the other question before we get to the thing that I wanted to bring up about Green Lanterns. So Hawkman and Hawkwoman, or girl, anything?
I always liked the idea that they were aliens and they inspired Egyptians. But after that, the whole reincarnation thing just makes it too damn confusing.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to imagine those characters without some of that there. So I would do the Starman thing. Have you read Starman?
No.
Okay, well, James Robinson's Starman is a really good book. It's got a lot to do with Justice League versus Justice Society and what Starman means at that point and the evolution of passing the torch characters and things like that, legacy characters. So I would do more of the Thanagarians and were part of Earth's civilization, and they influenced the Egyptians, but ultimately they were just killed in a war at the fall of the Egyptian Empire. They just died. There was nothing magical or world-consuming about that. They just ended up dying because they got too comfortable with where they were. And then eventually down the line, since you're doing Green Lantern stuff and you're tying that stuff back in, and heroes are becoming more prevalent on Earth, and you already have the whole Rann-Thanagar war going on in the DC universe, maybe Hawkman and Hawkgirl just decide to fly the Earth because their own world is getting too political and too caught up in their own battles. They don't feel like there's a need for them there anymore. And then when they come to Earth, they join the Justice Society because they're a lot older anyway. They just start at like age 40, 50-ish. And they're getting used to the new group of superheroes, and they help them out every now and then. They're kind of the bridge between the two groups. And that's how they bring the Rann-Thanagar's war stuff over, because they're on Earth now, so those two armies feel like they have more territory to conquer, and then you can bring in characters like Adam Strange through that.
Okay. See, for me, I think I'd keep the instead of it being like a lot of Thanagarians in ancient Egypt, what I think I'd do is have Thanagar's intergalactic travel. Like they've mastered interplanetary travel. Their ships can go fast enough to get between planets in a matter of hours, like modern airplanes do, right?
Right.
I should rephrase that, because modern airplanes do not get between planets in a matter of hours. The way in which modern airplanes get between countries. Just realized how stupid that sounded.
If only, though, right?
Right? So, like interplanetary things for Thanagarian space travel is like, it's only a couple hours. But intergalactic travel requires, what's it called when you freeze somebody? God damn it.
Stasis?
Cryogenics. Requires cryogenic freezing. So, in my mind, I'd have the ship go to Earth to like set up a garrison, which is where we get the ancient Egypt stuff. And for one reason or another, they get put back in the pods and get frozen, even though they don't take off. Something happens. I don't know what I would have happen yet, but just the two of them get put in the pods, and you go to early 1900s stuff, or keep it in the World War II thing, since Hitler was all around North Africa too. So maybe they've stolen the chambers, but they're still frozen at that era of history.
Right.
And then the Nazis start doing experiments on them, which causes the memory problems, which is why they don't remember each other or anything, or why Hawkgirl doesn't remember Hawkman, kind of thing.
Right.
That could be interesting to me. And then you just have them finally get fully unfrozen in the modern day.
Yeah, I can see that. That would certainly help cut down on all the versions and canons of those characters. It's just a matter of getting writers to stick to that.
Yeah, because it's just Hawkman's just one of those characters. It's like, fuck it, we'll do whatever we want.
Yeah, every time. They don't even do the old thing of a new writer comes on, so they have to finish up the continuity of the story of the last writer. No, they just do something new every time.
Hawkman is the poster child for the New 52's new direction of story over continuity.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, anyway, it worked with Hawkman. No, it really didn't. Shut your mouth. Okay, so that takes care of Hawkman. The other thing I kept saying I wanted to talk about was the Green Lanterns, because as much as I like all of the human Green Lanterns, with the exception of Guy Gardner, it is a really weird thing that there are 5 Green Lanterns from Earth at this point. The Ring has an entire section of the universe to pull from, and it pulls 5 dudes from Earth.
Yeah.
Kyle Rayner's kind of the exception there, because Gantet chose him individually.
Right.
But that is a weird thing. So the way I guess I'd do it is I'd build it into the Sinestro origin a bit. That I did this in my pitch for a Green Lantern movie sequel at one point, and I think it would work just as well in the comics anyway. You use the Reach as your main villain. And the Reach is the Blue Beetle Scarab guys, so you can use this to also introduce Ted Kord and all them. So you use the Reach as your main villain in a Green Lantern story, and they're at war with the Green Lantern Corps. And the problem is that, like, the Scarabs kind of have, I guess, maybe the alien face hugger kind of effect, and they're taking over whoever they attach onto. So the Corps is, like, desperate for more members, so they institute a member selection draft where the Ring will find possible candidates within a sector, and the Green Lantern of that sector will go choose his partner. And so that's how you could get, John Stewart, Guy Gardner, or all that. You can get some of that taken care of, in my mind.
Right.
By having the Rings choose or having the Green Lanterns choose their sector partner. And then that takes care. Kyle Rayner is already an exception because his continuity can stay relatively the same. Maybe tighten some screws here or there.
Fix
so
the
you
whole
have
Hal Jordan stuff and make it a little bit more consistent or well told.
Yeah, probably. So you can have Hal choose either Guy or John Stewart at that point. I'd prefer him to choose John Stewart, and Guy Gardner just happens to get a ring at one point by accident. I don't know. I have no explanation for Guy Gardner because I'm not willing to give him the thought.
He's just not that great of a character, honestly, to me.
Yeah, I agree. I do not like Guy Gardner. He has his moments where he's funny, but not worth reading the whole book for.
He's good in Green Lantern the Animated Series. I'll give him that.
Oh, yeah, he's hilarious in that. But everything's good in Green Lantern, the Animated Series.
It's a really good show.
Yeah. So that's how I'd handle all the different Green Lanterns from Earth. And there was a little bit of that in the comics where they explained how they expanded from 3,600 to 7,200 members. So I'd kind of be combining those things a little bit.
So how would you do the multiple ring colors? Would that still come in later, or would that always be there?
John's kind of built it in so it was always a part of it to one extent or another, because Sinestro always had a yellow ring. He just didn't realize what it was.
Right. Okay.
And he built Atrocitus and the Red Lantern rings were built into the Alan Moore Inversions story where we get the prophecy of Blackest Night. So Blackest Night, the Black Lanterns, has always been part of it too now.
Okay.
So that's all fairly well built in. You only have, the Zamorans, the Star Sapphires, Pink Lantern Corps, they've always been kind of a part of it. You just had what it used to be. Star Sapphire used to be like an actual sapphire that would attach itself to the one true love of the Green Lantern, and then it would use that person to attack the Green Lantern or whatever. And so Johns cleverly has Hal Jordan try to make out with one of the Zamaronian queens. So the Star Sapphire is convinced that Hal Jordan's in love with her, and so it goes attaches itself to her, and she's able to overcome it after a little bit, and they decide, okay, this method is no longer working. We're going to start our own corps. and that's how you get Star Sapphire. So I really like that as how you're going to continue to do it.
Okay.
Indigo Tribe was set up in secret by Abin Sur. That one's already fairly well covered too. It's kind of like weird thing about the Indigo Tribe is they're all criminals. They're all like horrible murderers and stuff, and they put on the ring, and it makes them feel compassion. So the only way they can feel good after putting on the Indigo ring is to help others.
Cool, okay.
So it's kind of like a prison in a weird way. So then, what else was... Larfleeze has been around for billions of years, we find out, that's fine. So I guess it's always been a part of it, and there have been Green Lantern stories in the past where someone showed up with a red ring or whatever. It was just never really... No one ever really ran with it the way that Johns did, so...
Right.
That kind of has always been a part of it. And he did a really good job of working everything in together. So yeah, that part I don't really think that needs to be touched up on very much at all.
Okay.
Maybe not have it happen all at once.
Yeah.
Is the only other thing. Like that's the only problem with his run is all this stuff starts to come together at once, but that's kind of okay because it's a prophecy and stuff. It's prophecy coming to fruition, so you know.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right, so that takes care of all the Justice League characters. Is there anything else to talk about? Do we want to talk about like major events that still need to happen? Oh, Darkseid, New Gods.
Oh yeah, good call. I don't think we need to change anything with that though, really, because that's just they become Superman villains at a point. They've got their own world, their own cosmic war, and every now and then it just bleeds over.
Yeah. I just wanted an explanation for why the hell Darkseid cares about Earth so much. As much as I don't like the first arc of the Justice League book or the Justice League War movie for that matter, I do like that Earth's just another planet that Darkseid's taking over. That's a detail I do like about it.
Yeah, I like that.
And so
I also like animated series where it's just a vendetta against Superman.
Yes, I think it'd be good to combine those two, as Superman and the Justice League kind of turn away Darkseid's first initial invasion, which is kind of a passive. He just shows up, he's like, okay, I'm your new god now. And then they're like, no, we fought you off, and they turn him back, and they get Highfather's help, maybe.
Yeah.
Like we do in Superman the Animated Series. And then that just turns into a vendetta for Darkseid, where every single invasion and war he's starting up again with Highfather always starts with Earth. To make as a point,
right?
So that could be interesting, and that helps solve 3 of the crises. That lays the foundation for 3 of the crises, I guess.
Pretty much.
Okay. So, Crisis on Crisis on Infinite Earths was the Silver Age to Bronze Age transition, right?
Yes, essentially.
Okay, so we don't really need that anymore. We're just starting over with a new universe.
The universe the way that we describe essentially starts with Silver Age to Bronze Age.
Yeah, and it's all just 40s stuff, and there's no real superheroes. They're all just kind of like the prototypes here and there.
Right. Infinite Crisis may not need to happen anymore, except maybe for the death of Superboy.
Yeah, I'm good. Just. The only reason you still need it is if you wanted to keep Sinestro War in continuity, and we'll just write that again. It's okay. Make it a little bit better.
Identity Crisis can happen the way it is, really, same way.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if I'd handle Tim Drake's dad's death in that book. Maybe it would be better if it was in his own book, but again, that's just a tie-in issue, not really an event issue.
Yeah. Is there any... Do we want to talk about Lex Luthor a little bit, just on his own, since we kind of talked about... We talked about him a little bit, but I think he kind of deserves his own little span of time, don't you?
Yeah, sure. I love Lex Luthor, so... Brian Azzarello's Man of Steel book.
Oh, God, I love that.
Yeah.
Brian Azzarello is the most polarizing writer for me.
I like most of his stuff, but I haven't read all of it.
I love Lex Luthor Man of Steel. I despise Joker. I really enjoy his Wonder Woman run, even though I understand what people don't like about it. I really enjoy his Batman Flashpoint. It's so weird. He's just just every so often though, he's such a polarizing writer for people. It's strange.
He's got a really weird tone, but I wonder how much of that is him and how much of that is the artist he works with, because his Flashpoint is very different from the way he writes Batman. But the way he writes Batman is very similar to the way to the way Lee Bermejo did Batman Noel.
I don't know. It's weird. But yeah, so Lex Luthor, I do think the premise of him being the guy that everyone loves. Like, I talk about Bruce Wayne being, like, kind of this public joke that's always kind of going off half-cocked, trying to get involved in things that people don't think he has any idea about. And I think that would work well to do No Man's Land with, is, like, he when he finally does try to be serious, people just think of him as a joke, and so they don't even bother with him. And that's why Gotham doesn't get the help it needs before the earthquake happens. So Lex Luthor is kind of like the public official that everyone actually trusts and likes. I'm trying to think of a real life example to compare him to that isn't evil.
That isn't evil that we know of.
Steve Jobs. Yeah. Steve Jobs is kind of the tone I guess I'd go for with Lex Luthor, where it turns out he's a horrible person, but you don't know that until you actually look into him. Otherwise, he seems like the nicest, most brilliant guy in the world. And I think there's a little bit of that going on with the casting choice with Jesse Eisenberg and Batman and Superman. So
that seems to be the inspiration for it, yeah. I would almost go more comic book Justin Hammer with Lex Luthor, where no one knows he exists. But he's the guy that creates all the supervillains. Because if you want to gimmick, you need technology, and you're not going to get that on your own. So Lex is the one that does that. But the only catch is you give me 50% of whatever profit you make.
That'd be interesting. That seems more of like a Kingpin thing though than what I'd like Luthor to be doing.
That's fair. I guess in recent years I've just become more of a Marvel guy, so Kingpin, Justin Hammer type characters appeal more to me.
Yeah, for me, I like Lex Luthor to be because you have to leave room for Lex Luthor to actually become president.
Yes, that's true.
Like the DC universe, the way they got Lex Luthor elected makes no sense.
No, not at all.
Like, there's no way that man would ever get elected, and if he was the president, no one would ever believe that it was a legitimate election. So
damn Florida.
For me, you really do need to make Lex Luthor the public official that people could actually believe is a good guy, kind of like the Frank Underwood thing.
I can see that.
So yeah, that's how I'd go with it. Is you have people that are out there saying he's a horrible person, like Lois Lane and Clark Kent. Like anytime someone talks about him, you have people go, well, Lois Lane reported this and Clark Kent reported this, and you have pundits go, oh, those two just have a vendetta. Those two just couldn't get hired at LexCorp, so they hate Lex Luthor now.
Oh, you know what would be interesting is
what
if you did the thing of Lex Luthor's father is in charge of the company for most of it, no matter how old he gets, and Lex is groomed to be the Secretary of Defense.
Huh.
And he kind of, in a way, privatizes peace and war. Because they're essentially the same person are running private and public sector.
Okay.
And then you could believe people like him because he's always on the media. He's always by the president's side. He's always defending the country from war, even though his company's the one that starts them.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, I could see that. Like I said, I want him to be like the opposite of my version of Bruce Wayne in my mind. Like,
that makes sense.
In the public eye, he's the good guy, and Bruce Wayne's the joke or like the schemer. But in the background, Bruce Wayne's the one with the people at heart, and Lex Luthor's the one that's trying to take over the world, kind of thing.
Yeah, I can see that.
So yeah, I think that's a pretty good DC universe, though. Is there anything else we need to bring up? Any other major characters or stuff? A lot of the origins don't really need to change. It's just putting it all into an order.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't off the top of my head any other characters I want to talk about. Because like you said, all the stories can stay the same. The universe's tone can shift from book to book, but it's still got a cohesive message now. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's about it. Ignore New 52.
Except for Action Comics.
Yeah, for Action Comics. And maybe some of the later stuff they did with Detective Comics with Harvey Bullock.
I've not read it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that stuff's fantastic if you have it. That makes that character interesting.
I dropped it when Tony Daniel was still writing it.
Okay, that's fair. That book has not been very consistent up till now.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's our DC Universe headcanon. I hope everyone enjoyed. If there's characters that we forgot to mention, or if there's a pitch that you didn't like, please leave a comment down below explaining why. It's just the fun kind of thing to do, because obviously everything we're talking about is not stuff that's happened in the comics per se. Like, it didn't play out exactly this way. But I think every comic fan kind of has this. It's like, okay, this is the order that's in my head. Let's see how it plays out. And so we kind of hold it up when we talk about, when we say the character wouldn't do that, this is the kind of stuff we're referencing in the back of our head. So I think it's kind of a good idea to have it kind of all put out there on paper.
Yeah, it's a sense of how we see the whole universe as a whole, as opposed to just our favorite characters, but it informs why they're our favorite character.
Yeah, definitely. Good talk, Steve. Good talk.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, so we're going to do a Marvel one of these for you guys next time, and I hope you enjoyed. Everyone, thank you for listening. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm the Politician.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.